If you're busy all the time, but feel like you're not making progress towards the things that matter fast enough, this video is for you. As the founder and CEO of a public safety startup serving millions of people, I've learned that productivity isn't about doing more. It's about knowing what actually drives results. And by the way, this is part 4 of a 6-part series where I break down each chapter of Brendon Burchard's best-selling book, High Performance Habits, and how I apply these habits as a founder. Today, we're talking about how to increase productivity. If you want to follow along with the series, I've also created a free 30-day habit accelerator with prompts to help you figure out where to start and what to focus on. It's linked in the description. In this video, I'll share Brendon's definition of productivity along with 3 practices you can use to dramatically increase your output without just clocking more hours. Brendon explains that learning what actually drives results is one of the greatest breakthroughs you can have in your career because it shifts you from being busy to being truly effective. The truth is, if we don't decide what matters, we don't get the satisfaction of achieving something important. We might help someone else achieve their dreams, but not necessarily our own. Increasing productivity is about knowing which activities create meaningful results, planning your major moves, and building mastery in the skills that keep you effective in the long term. Before I read this chapter, I thought increasing productivity meant cramming more tasks into an already overflowing calendar. Honestly, it kept me super busy without actually moving the needle as much as I wanted. But this first practice will change that. It's called Increase the Outputs That Matter. Brendon writes, if you want to become extraordinary, you need to figure out the productive outputs that matter in your industry. High performers focus on what he calls prolific quality output, or PQO. They produce more high-quality output than their peers over time, which is what makes them effective, remembered, and trusted. The process he suggests is simple, but dramatically increases results. It involves figuring out what you're supposed to produce and learning the priorities in terms of creation, quality, and frequency of that output. For some industries, that might be number of sales, or pages written, or content created. A prompt you can use for this practice is, which outputs, if you achieved them this week, month, or year, would create the most progress towards your goal? Once you know what those outputs are, the next step is planning how you'll actually achieve them. Brendon calls this practice Chart Your 5 Moves. He explains that for every major goal you have, you need to figure out the 5 moves associated with it. He says, if you don't know the moves, you lose. He recommends these 4 steps. First, decide what you want. Then determine the 5 major moves that will help you achieve that goal. Next, do deep work on each of the 5 moves. He recommends trying to spend at least 60% of your work week dedicated to these efforts, until they're complete. And finally, designate all else as distraction, tasks to delegate, or things to do in blocks of time that you've allocated to the remaining 40%. Most goals don't fail because they're impossible. They fail because the moves were never clear in the first place. For this prompt, you can ask yourself, what are the 5 critical moves towards your next major goal? To answer that question, I really like to brainstorm a list of all the major moves I can think of. Then I circle my top 5 and put them in the right order. Okay, now that you know your 5 major moves, you'll need the skills to execute them, which is why the 3rd and final practice for increasing productivity is to get insanely good at key skills. Brendon emphasizes that repetition alone rarely leads to high performance. Most people think that if they want to get good at swimming, they just need to swim more and spend more time in the pool. But Brendon explains that isn't enough. The person who learns how to use what he calls progressive mastery will outperform their peers every time. There are 10 steps for developing mastery in any key skills, and I'm going to read those 10 steps directly from the book. 1. Determine a skill that you want to master. 2. Set specific stretch goals on your path to developing that skill. 3. Attach high levels of emotion and meaning to your journey and your results. 4. Identify the factors critical to success and develop your strengths in those areas, and fix your weaknesses with equal fervor. 5. Develop visualizations that clearly imagine what success and failure look like. 6. Schedule challenging practices developed by experts or through careful thought. 7. Measure your progress and get outside feedback. 8. Socialize your learning and efforts by practicing or competing with others. 9. Continue setting higher level goals so that you keep improving. And 10. Teach others what you're learning. He also says these 10 principles of progressive mastery are a more nuanced version of what is often called deliberate practice, a term coined by Anders Ericsson. The truth is, you don't need to be good at everything, but if you use progressive mastery, you will become exceptional at the skills that actually matter for your work. Here's a final prompt to get you moving in the right direction. What are the 5 skills that matter most for succeeding in your industry? And how can I start blocking time to develop those skills now? Brendon says if it's not on your calendar, it isn't going to happen. So consider taking a minute to add something now, like right now. And if you want to join a group of us developing these habits, download my free 30-day habit accelerator. It's in the description, and it's there to help you build momentum and make progress towards your biggest goals one day at a time. Okay, if this was helpful, hit subscribe and join me next week as we break down chapter 5, which is called Developing Influence. Because productivity is critical, but influence is what turns your work into lasting impact. Thanks so much for watching. I'll see you next Thursday.